Welcome to the Bible Forum. I'm Warren Sprouse. We're here every Sunday night from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern. I'd love for you to have you join us live in the chat room. I want to talk to you about a new climate expert. This week, Thursday, as a matter of fact, on The Blaze, the Thursday episode of their program called Pat Gray Unleashed. Pat Gray discussed the latest climate change expert. His name is Francisco Javier Vera. He's a 10-year-old. He leads Colombia's climate fight and following in the footsteps of climate change activist Greta Thunberg. Why does any of this matter? Well, the issues here are age, he's 10 years old, and propaganda. Climate change and global warming are real. They're just not new. And the left is struggling to make people actually believe the threat is imminent. Or in the case of people who can actually think without someone telling them what to think, believe it at all. Enter the children. We saw Greta Thunberg from Sweden, right? Now there's Francisco Javier Vera, 10 years old, Venezuela. He's characterized as leading the fight against climate change. So what are we looking at? Well, the climate change activists are running out of steam. It isn't working. Americans are not paying as much attention anymore, since their scientific claims are largely exaggerated and increasingly being exposed as not news. Not news? Yeah. This planet has a history of climate change. I know that might upset some of you. Probably would have been good if those who thought they had a good excuse for reducing our carbon footprint had done their homework. But activists are not known for that. The hype is all they need in a world where young people are so gullible. The hippies denounced the war in Vietnam. They did that largely because they were the ones being drafted. Women and others denounced childbirth beginning in the 1960s because they wanted sex without consequence. That doesn't happen anywhere. First it was their right to birth control pills. Then it was kill the baby so I don't have to be limited in any way. Both efforts were openly and obviously self-serving, and they still are. And now we have this climate change, something that sounded good since scientists could prove the Earth's temperature was actually rising over time. But what happened? What happened was that more and more scientists started looking at this and found cycles of climate change going back thousands of years. Can you say, oops? Most of us read about them in high school. For example, our American Revolutionary War. Think the winter in Valley Forge. We were coming out of something called the Little Ice Age in those days. And the winter was much colder than anything we've seen since. But real facts don't impress activists. Former Vice President Al Gore has made a fortune off of all of this, regardless of anything real. What's happening now is that the facts are starting to get in the way. So we find children who actually believe the world is dying, and we push them to the forefront. Who can ignore these young faces? Only we're finding these children are not exactly what they seem. Take Greta Thunberg, for example. Turns out she's a troubled child. Her father has said she, quote, stopped eating and talking to others 3 or 4 years before finding fame in the global climate effort, end of quote. He believes all this attention has helped her out of her depression. Now, an even younger child is taking up the mantle. Why? Because he's cute. He comes from another country. He knows more about this case, this crisis, than most Americans. He leads marches. He makes speeches. He even spoke before the Argentine Senate. But he's 10 years old. Yeah? And he's been doing this for several years. What were you doing in third grade? I think all this comes under the heading of child abuse. Warping young minds with theories untested, theories in a state of flux, encouraging them to change the world through activism. Activism real adults must then work through and around in order to make any true progress. Activism which is touted by liberals as legitimate and necessary. Activism that changes the culture, changes the products we can purchase, the laws. Because it's true? Well, we're not really sure about that, at least not yet. But if it is true, we need to take steps, and we need to take those steps now. Like what? Well, a website called inhabit.com offers 6 steps we can take. We can restore the ecosystems, biodiversity, reduce fossil fuels, presumably with atomic energy, that when reactors go bad, no one can live within 10 miles of them. Can you say Russia? Oh, we've gotten better at protections now. 3 Mile Island. What about the power these plants produce and we depend upon when we do have a problem? Japan is struggling to find ways to cool all their reactors moving forward. Experts are now focused on carbon sequestration mechanisms, restoring wetlands, grasslands, forests, coastal and ocean ecosystems. I say lots of luck. You tried it because it seemed like a good idea, and now you're stuck. The website also advertises promoting regenerative agriculture. One soil scientist at Ohio State University says a 2% increase in carbon content of the planet's soil could offset 100% of greenhouse gas emissions. Industrial agriculture? I'm assuming the mechanical equipment now used in farming is a major contributor to global warming. 6 billion tons of greenhouse gases in 2011, about 13% of the total of these global emissions comes from the gas-powered tools used in the farming. Thirdly, your car. We say, I got an electric automobile. You know, the ones that people are now starting to stay away from because of all the expense. Do you have any idea how much it costs to replace one of those batteries? But look at the gas savings. Reality, it doesn't offset that cost when the time comes. I hear the complaints, the anguished cries. We're now being told that, quote, the era of affordable electric vehicles is about to begin. That coming a decade or more after we were told the technology already exists. Fourthly, we can switch to 100% renewable energy resources. Here they're talking about windmills, solar panels, geothermal, hydropower, water, wave power, tidal power, biofuels, and biomass, whatever that is. Experts are predicting 10 more years and we'll be there. Again. Liberal nations and cities are already lining up to do it. Number 5, we can improve current energy efficiency. That's the only thing that makes sense to me. And number 6, we can switch to a plant-based diet. Vegan. Vegan diets reduce emissions by 70%. What emissions are we talking about? I suppose in the planting of the vegetables, but I'm also supposing in human gases. And all this is going to lower the planet's temperature. Do these people have any idea how big this plane is? How complex, I said plane, I meant planet, how complex the systems are? How climate changes we cannot control impact our system? And we're not even talking about God. God has specified how this planet is going to go away. And it isn't something mankind is going to do. I know, not everybody believes the Bible. But have Bible predictions ever been wrong? Not to date. The Bible tells us God is going to melt the earth with a fervent heat and then create a new one. A different planetary system. One that will last forever. One that will be perfect in every way. Until then, what can mankind do to thwart God's program?